everyone, it's Sarah here. And welcome back to Super English Talks. I'm so glad you've joined me today. Because we're going to talk about something that I know a lot of you have wished for at some point in your life: reading faster. I mean, think about it. We live in a time when information is everywhere. Articles pop up on your phone all day. Emails are waiting for you every morning. There are books you want to read, reports you need to finish, and maybe even language learning. Materials you're trying to get through. And sometimes it just feels like there aren't enough hours in the day to read it all. Wouldn't it be great if you could go through all that reading material faster without losing the meaning or enjoyment? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore today. I'm not here to sell you some magical promise that you'll suddenly be able to read 1,000 words minute by tomorrow. No, this is going to be a real practical conversation about how you can train yourself to read faster, understand more, and even enjoy the process. I want you to walk away from this talk feeling like speed reading isn't some mysterious talent that only a few people are born with. Instead, it's something you can start improving today, step by step. Let's start with something important. A lot of people have heard about speed reading, but have also heard myths about it. You know, the ones that you can glance at a page for a second and instantly understand every single detail. Or that you can read a huge novel like War and Peace in an hour and remember every character's name. Well, those myths might sound exciting, but in reality, reading is a process that involves your eyes, your brain, and your focus. And no matter how fast your eyes move, your brain still needs to process the meaning. So, when I talk about speed reading today, I'm not talking about skipping over everything or just guessing what the text says. I'm talking about a balanced approach, moving your eyes more efficiently, reducing habits that slow you down, and learning techniques that help you take in more words at a time, while still understanding them. The very first thing we have to talk about is focus. Focus is the foundation of reading speed. If you're distracted, it doesn't matter what techniques you use, your speed will slow down and your comprehension will drop. Have you ever tried reading while your phone keeps lighting up with messages, or when there's noise around you, or even when your mind is busy thinking about your to-do list? You might notice your eyes moving across the page, but your brain isn't absorbing much.
Right.
Then you have to go back and reread, which just wastes time. So, the first step is creating a reading environment where you can really focus. For me, that means finding a quiet spot, turning my phone to silent mode, and even telling people around me, "Hey, I'm reading for the next 20 minutes, so please don't interrupt." It also means dealing with those internal distractions, those random thoughts that pop up in your head. One trick I use is keeping a little notepad next to me. If a thought comes up like, "Oh, I need to send that email later. I just write it down and get back to reading. K. My brain knows I won't forget it. K. And I can return to the text without worrying. Once you've got your focus in place. The next thing to think about is a habit many of us have without even realizing. Subvocalization. That's the fancy term for the little voice in your head that says each word as you read. We all learned to read by sounding out words, and that habit stays with us. But the truth is, your brain can understand words much faster than your inner voice can speak them. If you say every word in your head, you're basically limiting your reading speed to your speaking speed. And that's a big speed limit now. I'm not saying you can completely get rid of subvocalization, and honestly, for difficult texts, it can help comprehension. But you can reduce it. One way is to keep your eyes moving and avoid pausing too long on each word. Another way is to use a visual guide, like your finger or a pen, to lead your eyes along the line. This keeps your pace steady and makes it harder for that inner voice to slow you down. Some people also chew gum or lightly tap their fingers while reading. The extra rhythm distracts the voice in your head and encourages your brain to process the words visually instead of auditorily. Another important technique is something called chunking or clustering. Most people read word by word, but that's not how our brains work best. Our brains are great at recognizing patterns. So if you train yourself to see groups of words at once, you can read faster and understand more. For example, instead of reading the cat, set on, they, mat one word at a time. You see the cat sat as one chunk and on the mat as another. Over time, you can increase your chunk size so that each glance captures more of the sentence. And here's something I want to make clear. Reading faster isn't just about speed. It's also about comprehension. If you read faster but don't remember anything, then what's the point? That's why previewing a text before you read it can be so powerful. Spend a minute looking at headings, subheadings, and the first sentence of each paragraph. This gives your brain a roadmap of what's coming. So when you actually start reading, it's easier to fit new information into the bigger picture. There's also the strategy of skimming, not as a replacement for careful reading. A tool when you need the main points quickly. When skimming, you're not reading every word. You're looking for key words, phrases, and topic sentences that carry the meaning. This is great for emails, reports, or when you're reviewing something you've already read once before. Now you might be wondering, does speed reading really make that much difference? The answer is yes, not just in terms of time saved, but in mental energy. If you can process information more quickly, you have more time and energy left for thinking, analyzing, and applying what you've learned. Speed reading can also boost your focus because it forces you to stay engaged with the text. And some research suggests that it can improve your brain's flexibility and even your memory. Since you're actively training it to process and recall information more efficiently, of course, practice is the key. You can't just try these techniques once and expect a miracle. Learning a musical instrument or a new sport, it's all about repetition. Start by timing yourself. See how many words you can read in a minute, and then set small goals to improve. Do short daily practice sessions where you focus on one technique at a time. Maybe today you work on reducing subvocalization. Tomorrow, you focus on chunking. Over time, you'll notice your habits changing naturally. I also encourage you to be flexible. Not every text requires the same speed. You're reading a simple news article. You can go faster. If you're reading a complex scientific paper, you might slow down. The goal is to have the skills to adjust your speed depending on the material. Asterisk. And please remember, this isn't about rushing through books just to say you've read them. Reading is still about enjoyment, discovery, and understanding. Faster you can read while still enjoying the material, the more you'll get out of it. That's the sweet spot. I want you to imagine this. You wake up in the morning, and you have 10 unread emails from work. 3 news articles you've saved to read later. A couple of chapters in your current book that you want to finish. And, oh, that online course you're doing also has a 20-page PDF for today's lesson. You could spend the whole day reading and still not be done. That's the world we live in now. A world of constant reading demands. So wouldn't it be amazing if you could get through all that reading faster, but still understand and remember what you read? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Before we start, I want to make one thing clear. I'm not here to tell you that you'll suddenly be able to read an entire novel in 10 minutes, or that you'll become some superhuman book-scanning machine overnight. That's not realistic, and it's not what real speed reading is about. What I want to share with you is a set of skills and habits that, over time, will help you read faster, with more focus, and with better comprehension. It's about efficiency, not just speed.
Let's begin by addressing some common myths about speed reading, because I think this is important before we go into the how. One myth is that you can read every single word on a page in a fraction of a second and fully understand it. You've probably seen those flashy advertisements promising you'll go from reading 200 words a minute to 2,000. And sure, they might teach you to move your eyes faster. But if you're not actually understanding the words, then what's the point? It's like watching a movie on fast forward. You might get the basic idea, but you miss all the details and emotions that make it meaningful. Another myth is that speed reading means skipping words or even skipping entire sentences. Now, yes, there are moments when you can skim certain parts of a text, but that's not the same as ignoring large chunks of information. The goal isn't to cheat your way through a book. It's to train your brain and eyes to work more efficiently together so you can take in information in a way that feels natural but faster than before. Now that we've cleared that up, let's talk about the foundation of faster reading: focus. Focus is your best friend when it comes to reading speed. Think about the last time you tried to read while you were distracted. Maybe your phone buzzed. Maybe you were hungry. Maybe the TV was on in the background. Or maybe your mind was just somewhere else entirely. How many times did you read the same sentence over and over before it finally made sense? Distractions. Reading speed. And they destroy comprehension. That's why your first step in reading faster isn't actually about moving your eyes faster. It's about creating a reading environment that lets you fully focus. For me, that means choosing a quiet spot, turning off notifications, and making sure I'm comfortable. I also like to set a clear goal before I start. If I'm reading a book for pleasure, my goal might be to read 3 chapters. If I'm reading for work, my goal might be to finish a report and understand the key points. Having a goal keeps my mind engaged and less likely to wander. But here's another challenge. Even if you remove external distractions like noise and notifications, there are still internal distractions. I'm talking about the thoughts in your own head. Have you ever been reading and suddenly realized you're thinking about dinner or an errand you forgot to do? Your eyes are moving, but your brain isn't paying attention. One trick that works for me is keeping a notepad nearby. If a thought pops up that has nothing to do with my reading, I jot it down quickly so I can deal with it later, and then I go back to my reading. It's like telling your brain, I've got this covered. Now, let's get back to work. Your focus is under control. The next thing to address is subvocalization. That's the term for the habit of silently speaking each word in your head as you read. We all do it to some extent because that's how we learn to read. Sounding out words? The problem is that your brain can process words much faster than your inner voice can say them. So if you subvocalize every single word, you're limiting your reading speed to the speed at which you speak. You can't completely eliminate subvocalization, and for difficult texts, it can even help. But you can reduce it so it doesn't slow you down. One way to do this is to keep your eyes moving steadily along the page using a visual guide like your finger or a pen. This helps train your eyes to read in phrases instead of single words. Another trick is to occupy that inner voice with something else, like quietly humming, chewing gum, or even counting in your head as you read. These small distractions keep your brain from saying each word and encourage it to process the meaning visually instead. This leads us to a key technique for faster reading: chunking. Most people read word by word, but your brain is actually better at recognizing patterns and phrases. Chunking is when you train your eyes to see groups of words at once. You might focus on 2 or 3 words at a time. As you practice, you can expand to 4, 5, or more. For example, instead of reading "the wet hair was warm and sunny," you might read "the weather was as one chunk and warm and sunny as another." Over time, Chunking helps you read faster and improves comprehension because you're taking in ideas instead of just words. But remember, speed means nothing without comprehension. One way to boost comprehension while reading faster is to preview the text before you dive in. Look at the headings, subheadings, and the first sentence of each paragraph. This gives your brain a framework for what's coming, so when you read, you already have a mental map. Another way is to pause occasionally and summarize what you've read in your own words, either silently or out loud. This active recall strengthens your memory and ensures you're not just seeing words but actually absorbing their meaning. Now, sometimes you don't need to read every single detail. It's where skimming comes in. Skimming is a technique for finding the main points quickly. Focus on keywords, phrases, and topic sentences rather than every word. This is great for getting the gist of an article or reviewing something you've already read. Skimming isn't a replacement for deep reading, but it's a valuable tool when speed is more important than detail. One of the best parts of learning to read faster is the long-term benefit. Yes, you save time, but you also train your brain to stay focused for longer periods. You build mental stamina, and you create more opportunities to read because when reading feels easier and faster, you're more likely to do it. Plus, the more you read, the more your vocabulary grows, and the better your comprehension becomes. It's a positive cycle. Of course, all of this takes practice. Start by measuring your current reading speed. Just time yourself for 1 minute and count the words you read. Then work on one technique at a time. Maybe this week you focus on chunking. Next week, you practice reducing subvocalization. Little by little, your habits will change and your speed will improve. Also, be flexible. Not all texts are created equal. A simple blog post can be read quickly. A dense academic paper might require you to slow down. A novel you're reading for pleasure might be enjoyed at a slower pace to savor the language. Speed reading isn't about rushing through everything. It's about having the skills to adapt your speed to the situation. And above all, don't lose sight of why you read in the first place. Reading is about understanding, learning, and enjoying. The faster you can read while still understanding and enjoying, the better. But if you ever feel like you're just rushing and not appreciating the words, it's okay to slow down. The mechanics of speed reading. The science behind it. Truly read faster. You have to understand what's happening in your brain and eyes when you read. Reading isn't a simple, smooth process. Your eyes actually jump across the page in a series of tiny movements called fixations. Your eyes pause for a fraction of a second on a word or a group of words, and that's when your brain processes the information. Then, they jump to the next point of fixation. The key to speed reading is to make these fixations more efficient. We can do this in 3 main ways: by increasing our words per fixation, by minimizing subvocalization, and by eliminating regressions. First, let's talk about increasing words per fixation. The average person can only see and process 1 to 2 words with each fixation. To read faster, We need to train our eyes to take in more information at once. We're not just reading words, we're processing chunks of meaning. For example, instead of reading the tall brown dog, we can train our eyes to see the tall brown dog as a single unit. This is a skill that can be developed with practice. And it's one of the most powerful ways to increase your reading speed. Second, we need to tackle subvocalization. This is the habit of saying the words in your head as you read them. It's like having a little narrator in your brain. While this is how we first learn to read, it's a major bottleneck for speed. The voice in your head can only read as fast as you can speak, which is typically between 150 and 200 words per minute. But your brain can process information much faster than that. Subvocalization is a huge obstacle, and by minimizing it, you can unlock a higher reading speed. Third, we need to minimize regressions. Our regressions are those times when our eyes backtrack and reread words or sentences. Sometimes we do this consciously because we didn't understand something. But often, it's an unconscious habit that slows us down. By training our eyes to move forward through the text in a more rhythmic way, we can significantly reduce these unnecessary movements. Understanding these three mechanics is the foundation of effective speed reading. Now, let's talk about how. We can put this knowledge into practice with some real, actionable techniques.
Effective speed reading techniques, practical methods. Now that we know the science, let's dive into the practical techniques that will help you read faster and more effectively. 1. Create a reading sanctuary and master your focus. This might sound simple, but it's one of the most fundamental elements of speed reading. You have to eliminate distractions. When you're reading, your focus is a finite resource. Every time you get a notification from your phone or an email pings on your computer, you lose a little bit of that focus. Actionable step. Before you start reading, silence your phone, close unnecessary browser tabs, and find a quiet, comfortable space where you won't be interrupted. The next level. You also need to deal with internal distractions, like that mental to-do list. One helpful strategy is to have a piece of paper nearby. When a distracting thought pops into your head, just jot it down quickly so you can release it from your mind and get back to your reading. This is about turning reading into a mindful practice, a time to fully engage with the text. Point 2. Break the subvocalization habit. Remember that little voice in your head. It's time to silence it. This is a challenge because it's a deep-seated habit, but it's not impossible. Actionable step. One technique that might surprise you is to chew gum or hum softly while you read. This works wonders for distracting that inner voice because your brain can't easily perform both tasks at the same time. Another technique. You can also try counting in your head or gently tapping your fingers on the table. The goal is to give your brain something else to focus on besides the sound of the words. These small actions disrupt the subvocalization cycle and can significantly increase your reading speed. 3. Use a visual guide to control your eye movements, as we discussed. Your eyes make tiny jumps across the page. To read faster, we need to make those movements more rhythmic and controlled. Actionable step. Use a visual guide, like a pen or your finger, to smoothly guide your eyes across the page. This doesn't mean you're using the guide to follow every single word. Instead, you're using it to set a pace and a rhythm for your eyes to follow. The next level. As you get more comfortable with this, you can start using a technique called instead of just going straight across each line, you use a sweeping S-shaped motion down the page. Imagine starting slightly to the left of the first word, sweeping diagonally down towards the middle of the line, and then curving back up towards the right margin. This continuous flowing motion helps minimize regressions and keeps your eyes moving forward through the text. 4. Practice chunking to increase words per fixation. This is about training your eyes to see more than one word at a time. The more words you can process in a single glance, the faster you will read. Actionable step. Start by practicing with an easy text. Use your visual guide, but instead of focusing on a single word, try to focus on 2 to 3 words at a time. The next level. As you get better, you can gradually increase the number of words you take in with each glance. You'll find that your brain starts to recognize entire phrases as meaningful units of information. This isn't just about speed. It also improves comprehension because you're focusing on the meaning of phrases rather than individual words. Like seeing the forest, not just the trees. The benefits of speed reading. More than just speed, learning to read faster is a powerful skill. 8. But it's not just about speed. The benefits extend far beyond your reading ability and can have a positive impact on your cognitive function and overall learning. 1. Improved comprehension and retention. This is often the biggest concern for people when they think about speed reading. If I read faster, won't I understand less? The opposite is often true. By reading faster, you're forced to focus on the key ideas and the overall message of the text. You have less time to get bogged down in small, unimportant details. Actionable step. Use active recall to boost your comprehension. After you finish a section or a chapter, pause and try to summarize the key points in your own words, either mentally or in writing. This forces your brain to work harder to retrieve the information, which ultimately strengthens your memory. You can also ask yourself questions about the material or create mental images to visualize the concepts. 2. Enhanced focus and cognitive function. The techniques we've discussed, such as eliminating distractions and training your eyes to move in a rhythmic way, are a kind of mental workout. They force your brain to focus more intently and to process information more efficiently. This focused practice can have a positive spillover effect into other areas of your life. You may find that you can concentrate better on other tasks and that your mind feels sharper and more agile. 3. The ability to preview for faster understanding. Sometimes you don't need to read an entire text word for word. Maybe you're looking for a specific piece of information or just trying to get the main idea. This is where the skill of previewing or skimming comes in. Actionable step before you dive into a text. Take a few minutes to preview it. Read the title, the headings, the subheadings, and maybe the first and last sentences of each paragraph. This gives you a mental framework for the information, like having a map before you start a road trip. When you do start reading, you'll know what to look for, which makes the information easier to absorb and retain. Consistency is key. Making it a habit. All of these techniques are great in theory, but they are useless without consistent practice. Speed reading is a skill, just like learning a musical instrument or a new language. You can't expect to become a superhero overnight. Actionable step. Dedicate a small amount of time each day to focused practice. Even just 15 or 20 minutes a day can lead to significant improvements over time. You can set a timer and see how many words you can read in a minute, aiming to beat your score each time. Turning it into a challenge can make it more motivating. The next level. Remember to be patient with yourself. You will hit plateaus, and you may feel frustrated at times. The key is to celebrate the small, incremental wins. Notice those moments when you effortlessly glide through a page a bit faster, or when you grasp a complex concept more easily. It's about focusing on the progress, not just the end goal. The beauty of these techniques is that they can be learned by anyone at any age. With the right approach and dedication, you can absolutely level up your reading game. By training your eyes, your brain, and your mindset, you can become a more efficient, intentional, and adaptable reader. This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of speed reading. I hope you've gained some valuable insights and actionable strategies that you can start implementing right away. Thank you so much for joining me today. What's one speed reading technique from this episode that you're most excited to try? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this conversation helpful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Super English Talks. For more fascinating discussions on how to master English and supercharge your learning. Until next time, happy reading! Hello everyone, and welcome back to Super English Talks. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're talking about something that's absolutely crucial for effective communication, but it's often overlooked. It's something we all do, but most of us don't do it very well. We're talking about listening. But we're not just talking about hearing words. We're talking about active listening. The kind that builds real connections and changes lives. You know, a lot of people think of listening as a passive activity, like waiting for their turn to talk or just thinking about what they're going to say next. But it's so much more than that. It's about genuinely trying to understand the other person, their perspective, their feelings, their needs. When you listen to connect, you take the focus off yourself and put it onto the person speaking. You make them feel seen, heard, and valued. It's not about listening to reply or listening to learn something new. It's about listening to build a bridge to another person. It's a whole different ballgame. Why good listening really matters. So let's get practical here. We all know listening is important, but what's the real impact? On a very basic level, it's the foundation of any strong relationship. When you truly listen to someone, you're creating a space of trust. You're building rapport. Think about it. When someone really listens to you, you feel valued and you're more likely to open up and share. It's like you're saying, "Hey, you're important to me. I care about what you have to say." And you're also saying, "I respect you." This isn't just a feel-good thing either. There's a powerful, almost therapeutic aspect to it. When you have a conversation with someone who is genuinely listening, you feel validated. Your emotions are being acknowledged, and that can be incredibly healing for both people in the conversation. Good listening isn't just for personal relationships, either. Think about the workplace. It's a superpower. It can completely change the way a team functions. When people feel heard, they're more likely to collaborate effectively. Conflicts decrease, and problems get solved faster. Leads to better decision-making and a more productive work environment. So if you can master this skill, you'll be a leader, no matter your job title. The downside of bad listening, but what happens when we're bad listeners? We've all been on the receiving end of that, and it doesn't feel good. You feel ignored, dismissed, and like what you're saying doesn't matter. It's like you're talking to a brick wall. That feeling of invalidation can seriously hurt relationships. Over time, if you consistently feel like you're not being heard, that trust erodes. You stop sharing the important parts of yourself. You stop being vulnerable. And then it becomes a negative cycle. The less heard you feel, the less you share. This is a very damaging cycle for any relationship. So, how do we spot a bad listener? Besides the obvious things, like someone scrolling through their phone while you're talking, what are some other clues? A huge one is interrupting. If you're constantly cutting off the other person, it's a pretty clear sign that you're not really listening. You're just waiting for your turn to talk, more interested in what you have to say than what they're trying to get across. You're not trying to absorb their words. You're just formulating your own response. Another classic bad listener move is planning your response while the other person is still talking. You can tell their eyes have glazed over because their mind is already somewhere else, thinking about what they're going to say next. They're not truly present in the moment. And then there are distractions. These aren't just external distractions like a phone or a TV, but also internal distractions like our own thoughts, worries, and to-do lists. These can really get in the way of us being present. It takes a lot of effort to quiet that noise in our heads, but it's so important because if we're not present, we're not really listening. The mindset of an active listener. So, why do we do it? Is it just laziness? I think it's a mix of things. Sometimes people genuinely aren't aware that they're bad listeners. Maybe they were never taught good listening skills, or they don't realize how their actions are impacting others. Other times, it can be a defense mechanism. If a topic is uncomfortable, a person might shut down or interrupt as a way to protect themselves from having to deal with something they'd rather avoid. And we have to admit, we live in a world of constant stimulation. We're always multitasking. It takes a lot of effort to slow down and really focus on what someone is saying. We're constantly bombarded with information, notifications, and all these things that are pulling for our attention. It takes a conscious effort to just slow down, be present, and truly listen. So, becoming a better listener is about being deliberate. It's about changing our mindset and building new habits. It's not enough to just passively hear words. We need to be active. It's not enough to sit there and let the words wash over you. You have to be purposefully engaged. That's where active listening comes in. Active listening is about being fully present, both mentally and emotionally. It's about showing the speaker that you are right there with them, making a connection. Not just downloading information. How to practice active listenings so you're ready to get tactical. Let's talk about the specific skills you can develop to become an active listener. First and foremost, it's about paying attention. I know it sounds obvious, but it's more than just registering the words. It's about minimizing distractions. Put your phone down. Turn towards the person. Use open body language. You're sending a message with your body just as much as your words. That you're there and you're listening. Then there are the verbal cues we use to show that we're following along. Little things like I see, hum, or tell me more are simple but effective. They encourage the speaker to keep going and let them know that you're tracking with them. And don't underestimate the power of asking open-ended questions instead of questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no. Ask questions that invite the person to share more about their thoughts, feelings, and experiences. For example, instead of asking, "Did you have a good day?" you can ask, "What was the best part of your day?" This can lead to a much richer conversation, and you'll learn so much more about the other person. There's also summarizing what you've heard. This is a great way to make sure you're getting it right. Say something like, "It sounds like you're frustrated because of X, and you're not sure how to proceed. Is that right?" This not only shows you're listening, but also gives the speaker a chance to clarify if you've misunderstood. It helps build trust because it shows that you're genuinely trying to understand their point of view. The power of empathy. One of the most important tools in an active listener's toolkit is empathy. Empathy isn't just about understanding what someone is saying. It's about trying to understand what they are feeling. It's about putting yourself in their shoes, even for a moment, to get a sense of their emotional landscape. For example, a friend might be telling you about a problem at work. They're using words to describe a conflict with a coworker, but their voice is tight and their shoulders are slumped. A passive listener would just hear the words, "My coworker is difficult." An empathetic listener, however, would pick up on those nonverbal cues. They might say, "It sounds like you're not just dealing with a difficult situation, but you're also feeling really stressed and defeated by it." This simple acknowledgement of their feelings, not just the facts, can make them feel incredibly understood and supported. This doesn't mean you have to agree with everything they're saying or feel exactly what they're feeling. It means you're trying to validate their experience. Validation is a powerful act. It's saying, "I see your feelings and they are real and important." When people feel validated, they feel safe. And a safe space is where genuine connection happens. Overcoming our internal biases. Be honest, we all have internal biases. We have our own experiences, our own beliefs, and our own preconceived notions about how the world works. When we're listening to someone, these biases can act like a filter, preventing us from truly hearing what they're saying. We might dismiss their opinion because it doesn't align with our own. Or we might jump to conclusions based on a similar experience we once had. The key to overcoming this is mindfulness. Mindfulness is about being present in the moment and observing your own thoughts and reactions without judgment. When you notice yourself preparing a counter-argument or thinking, "Oh, I know exactly what they mean," stop for a second. Take a deep breath. Bring your focus back to the speaker. Actively choose to listen with a beginner's mind, as if you're hearing their story for the very first time. This can be especially challenging when you're in a disagreement. It's easy to get defensive and just wait for your turn to prove your point. But the best way to resolve a conflict is to first understand the other person's perspective completely. Even if you don't agree with them, you can say, "I hear what you're saying, and I understand why you feel that way." This is not an admission of guilt. It's a bridge to a solution.
The art of the follow-up greet listening doesn't end when the conversation does. A great listener remembers what you said and follows up on it later. For instance, if a friend told you about a big job interview, a good listener would text or call them a day or two later and ask, "Hey, how did that interview go?" This simple act shows that you were truly listening, that their story mattered to you, and that they're still on your mind. It reinforces the trust you've built and deepens the relationship. This is particularly effective in a professional context. Imagine a manager who asks their team member about a project they're working on and then, in the next meeting, checks in on its progress. That simple follow-up shows they were genuinely interested, not just asking a perfunctory question. It makes the team member feel valued and confident in their work. So, being a better listener is an ongoing process. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about being empathetic. It's about putting aside your own internal noise and truly focusing on the other person. A deeper framework for listening now. Let's take this a step further. We can think of active listening in a three-part framework: cognitive, emotional, and behavioral. The cognitive aspect is about paying attention to all the information being conveyed. This includes what's being said directly and what's implied. It's about reading between the lines and using all your senses to get the full picture of what the speaker is trying to communicate, including the nuances of the conversation. Then, there's the emotional aspect. This is about how our own emotions play into being a good listener. As we talked about earlier, our feelings can get in the way. If we're feeling defensive, triggered, or stressed, we might tune out, interrupt, or misinterpret what the speaker is saying. The emotional part of active listening is about managing our own reactions, staying calm, and being compassionate, even when it's tough. It's about creating a safe, non-judgmental space where the speaker can share without feeling criticized or attacked. Finally, the behavioral aspect is about showing your interest and understanding through your words and actions. This includes things like maintaining eye contact, using encouraging body language, and asking clarifying questions. It's about putting all the techniques we've discussed together to show that you're present and engaged. You're using your behavior to say, "I'm here with you, I'm present, I'm listening." The listening audit. A self-thesmentalists think about this together. The next time you're in a conversation, I want you to be a silent observer of your own behavior. Don't change anything. Just notice what you're doing. Ask yourself these questions. Am I making eye contact with the person speaking? Are my hands on my phone? Or am I fiddling with something? Am I waiting for a pause so I can jump in with my own story? Am I thinking about my response while they're still talking? Am I getting distracted by my own thoughts or something in the room? You might be surprised by your answers. For many of us, the truth is that we are in a constant state of multitasking, even in our conversations. We're physically there, but our minds are a million miles away. This lack of presence is what damages our ability to connect. It makes the other person feel unimportant, and when someone feels that way, they stop sharing, and the conversation becomes shallow. The 2 ears and 1 mouth rule. There's an old saying, "You have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason." So you can listen twice as much as you speak. It's a simple concept, but it holds a profound truth. In conversation, we often feel the pressure to contribute. We think we have to have a clever reply, a relevant story, or a witty comment. But sometimes, the most powerful contribution you can make is to simply be a silent, present audience. This is where the power of the pause comes in. Instead of rushing to fill the silence, let it be. A brief pause allows the speaker to gather their thoughts and may even lead to them sharing something they were hesitant to say. When you let them have that space, you're communicating respect and trust. You're saying, "I'm not going anywhere. Take your time. I'm here for you." Learning to be comfortable with silence is a skill in itself. It requires you to set aside your own ego and your need to control the conversation. It's an act of generosity. From listening to learning, finally, let's consider what happens when we truly listen. We don't just build better relationships, we also become better people. Every person you meet has a unique story, a perspective shaped by their own experiences. When you listen to them, you're not just hearing a story. You're expanding your own worldview. Think about it. We often get stuck in our own bubble, surrounded by people who think and act like us. But through active listening, we get a glimpse into other people's worlds. We learn new ideas, we challenge our own assumptions, and we gain a deeper understanding of humanity. This kind of listening turns every conversation into a learning opportunity. So, this week, I want you to take your listening audit. Observe yourself in conversation and be honest about what you find. Then, try practicing the power of the pause. The next time there's a moment of silence, instead of jumping in, just wait. Let the other person speak. You might be amazed at what they say. Your cheat sheet to better listening nigh. Want to make sure you all walk away with some tangible takeaways. Let's create a little cheat sheet of actionable tips you can start using right away to become a better listener. Repeat the last few words the speaker said. It's a simple but effective technique that confirms you're with them and gives them a moment to think. It shows you're paying attention and allows for a natural pause in the conversation. Avoid paraphrasing unless it's absolutely necessary. Sometimes, people think paraphrasing shows they're listening, but it can actually create confusion and misinterpretations. Whenever possible, stick with the speaker's exact words. Offer small, genuine verbal cues. Little things like "unhung," "yeah," or "wow" can be powerful, but they have to feel natural. If they sound fake, they'll do more harm than good. Pay attention to nonverbal cues. The speaker's tone of voice, facial expressions, and body language all tell a story. Remember, listening goes beyond just words. You have to pay attention to all those nonverbal signals to get the full message. Practice being comfortable with silence. Don't feel the need to fill every pause. Let the speaker have a moment to gather their thoughts. Sometimes the most important thing a person has to say comes after a moment of quiet reflection. Put your own agenda on hold. When someone is speaking, your only job is to understand them. Don't think about how their story affects you or what you're going to say next. Just be present in their experience. The best listeners aren't born, they're made. It's a skill that you can cultivate and get better at with practice. And the more you practice, the more you'll notice how much deeper and richer your relationships become. So, for this week, I want to challenge you to try one of these tips. Maybe you'll focus on just putting your phone away during conversations. Or maybe you'll practice asking one open-ended question a day. Start small, be deliberate, and watch your communication skills transform. Thanks for joining me today. Wait to hear about your listening journey. If you have a story to share or a tip that works for you, let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Super English Talks for more conversations that help you improve your communication and language skills. I see you next time.